Today's video is truly mystifying. I was shocked after doing the research. Imagine hiking through a peaceful forest, breathing in the crisp mountain air, surrounded by nature's tranquility. It feels safe, almost sacred. But for some, this beauty hides something far more ominous. Every year, people vanish without a trace from these serene landscapes. And I'm not talking snatched by a mountain lion or bear, or wandering off the beaten track and getting lost. I'm talking vanished into thin air, even leaving professional search and rescue squads baffled. Their disappearances are unexplained, and often they leave behind nothing but questions, serious questions. Today we're looking into the eerie phenomenon known as the missing 411 cases, a collection of mysterious disappearances in national parks and rural areas, meticulously documented by a former police officer. Former police officer David Polides' investigations have sparked widespread interest and fear, because these cases don't fit the usual patterns of missing person reports. There's something different, something very strange, and for some, deeply unsettling about the missing 411. Let's explore the mystery, dive into some of the most bizarre cases, and discuss theories about what may be happening in America's once serene wilderness. So what exactly is missing 411? The term refers to an extensive series of strange disappearances that have occurred all across the US and even internationally, typically in or near national parks and rural wildernesses. The term 411 isn't the number of cases because, astonishingly, there have been thousands reported and documented. It comes from the old phone number for directory assistance, symbolizing a request for information, because in these cases, information is exactly what's missing. David Polides began his research after a chance conversation with a national park ranger who revealed that he was worried about how many people were disappearing under bizarre circumstances in his district, and often experienced search and rescue teams couldn't explain why or how. Over time and many man-hours, Polides identified patterns in these disappearances and started to categorize them. He was starting to establish that some of the victims were extremely adept hunters or fit hikers, and it was unlikely they would get themselves lost or disorientated like an average hunter stroke hiker could. These disappearances tend to happen in clusters, often within the same geographic area. Yosemite National Park, for instance, is a significant hotspot for missing 411, but certainly not the only. Many victims are last seen with a group but mysteriously vanish after they separate, even if it's only for a moment. He calls this the point of separation. When bodies are recovered, and not all are, many are found with missing clothing or shoes, often in conditions where it would seem illogical to remove them, such as freezing temperatures or treacherous terrain. Commonly, their clothing would be scattered around, sometimes with miles separating them, and sometimes bizarrely neatly folded. There's often a strange lack of physical evidence, no tracks, no signs of struggle. Even when the terrain suggests there should be footprints or disturbances, none are found. In some cases, bloodhounds or other search dogs cannot find a scent or refuse to track the victim through what their handlers state fear. Also, when the bodies were eventually found, they were often found in areas that had already been searched extensively, sometimes over and over again, normally within the primary search area around a 2-mile radius. The victim often vanished in the mid to late afternoon in broad daylight, not during the night as you would expect. These patterns suggest that something unusual is at play, but is it the work of predators, human foul play, or something weird? First, let's look at one of the most heart-wrenching cases documented by Polides, the disappearance of 3-year-old Jared Atadiro. In 1999, little Jared was part of a hiking group which included his sister in the Colorado wilderness. Jared's father, Alan, ran a Christian retreat center nearby, and the hikers were guests staying there. The group set out for a casual hike, nothing strenuous or demanding, just a casual short trip. Alan, the father, didn't join them on this particular trip as he had other work to do. During the hike, Jared reportedly ran ahead of the group, not too far, but ended up momentarily out of sight of his sister. As they passed a corner, he was seen near the trail, talking to some fishermen by a river. Moments later, he vanished, and the group noticed that he was no longer on the trail. Despite frantic searching by his sister and the rest of the group, Jared was nowhere to be found. A massive search and rescue operation began immediately, including hundreds of volunteers, search dogs, and helicopters equipped with heat-seeking devices combing the area for days. Searchers were perplexed by the lack of evidence. No footprints, no signs of a struggle, nothing that could indicate foul play or where Jared had gone. It was as if he had just simply vanished into thin air. Adding to the mystery, there was no clear reason why Jared would have ventured far off the trail. The terrain was rugged, and it would have been difficult for a young child to travel far, especially in such a short time. The extensive search and rescue turned up nothing. Nearly 4 years later, in the summer of 2003, little Jared's remains were discovered by two hikers on a steep and isolated mountain ridge, about 550 feet above the trail where he was last seen. They found a few small bones, his clothes, and one of his shoes. The condition of his clothing raised further questions. Jared's shoes were remarkably well preserved, even though they had been exposed to the elements for nearly 4 years in harsh, rocky terrain. His sweatshirt and pants were also found in relatively good condition, but had been turned inside out, an unusual detail that has led to massive speculation and confusion. There was no clear explanation for how his remains ended up so far from the trail, in an area difficult even for experienced hikers to reach. The official explanation for Jared's death is that he may have been attacked by a predator like a mountain lion, and that his remains were scattered by animals. However, this theory has been questioned both by Jared's father and others. There was no conclusive evidence of a predator attack, no signs of blood or a violent struggle, and Jared's shoes and clothes didn't show the kind of damage one might expect from such an encounter. And his clothes being turned inside out? That didn't add up. The condition and location of his remains and clothes have led some to believe there may be a lot more to this story. Theories range from the tragic but plausible idea of Jared falling and getting lost to more speculative ideas involving human foul play or even paranormal possibilities, as is often discussed in the context of the missing 411 cases. Jared's father, Alan Atadiro, has been a vocal advocate for uncovering the truth behind his son's disappearance. He has expressed frustration with the investigation, feeling that authorities were too quick to attribute Jared's death to simple accident or predator attack without exploring other possibilities. The disappearance of little Jared remains a haunting and unresolved mystery, highlighting and raising difficult questions about how some missing persons cases seem to defy conventional explanations. Once David Paulides exposed these mysterious disappearances, hundreds of state troopers and search and rescue professionals praised him for exploring them. They were amazed that no other person, including government and policing officials, had not asked questions before. You think the first case was strange? Wait till you hear the others. You're going to be baffled. I know I am. If you think you know what's going on, please let me know what you think in the comments. Our next case is that of Stacey Ann Harris, who was a 14-year-old girl who disappeared in Yosemite National Park in 1981. Her case is one of the most puzzling missing 411 cases because of the bizarre circumstances surrounding her disappearance and the complete lack of clues or physical evidence. Stacey was on a horseback riding trip with her father, a group of other campers, and Yosemite National Park staff. They rode to the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, which is located at an elevation of about 9,200 feet. After arriving at the camp, Stacey told her father that she wanted to go take some photographs of the nearby lake. She took her camera, walked a short distance away, and was last seen walking towards the lake by an elderly man who had accompanied her for part of the way. Stacy was expected to return shortly, but after some time passed, there was no sign of her. When the camp members went to search for her, they found no trace. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. A search was immediately launched, but no one could locate her, nor could they find any of her personal belongings, including her camera. Stacy was gone for just a brief period. It was a small, relatively open area where she disappeared, which makes it particularly strange that no one saw or heard anything unusual. Despite an extensive search involving helicopters again, search dogs, and a large team of searchers, not a single trace of Stacy was found. There was no footprints, no items of clothing, and no personal effects. This is highly unusual, as in most missing person cases in the wilderness, even if the person is not found, searchers typically recover some belongings. The search dogs that were used to try and track Stacy's scent could not pick up any trail. This is another reoccurring theme in many of the missing 411 cases. The area around the Sunrise High Sierra camp is a relatively open alpine meadow surrounded by forest. The terrain is not extremely rugged compared to other areas of Yosemite, and given Stacy knew the area and was used to the outdoors, it was strange that she had gotten lost so quickly and left no trace. Search efforts continued for 9 whole days, but no clues were ever found. The fact that the search teams, which included park rangers, volunteers, and even the military, found no sign of her is completely bizarre. Usually, at least some evidence of a missing person, such as a piece of clothing or a camera, would be found after such an extensive effort, but nothing at all was found. Stacy just vanished. Was it an animal attack? Well, no blood, nor ripped clothing, or drag marks or a struggle were ever found. Another theory is that Stacy may have encountered someone with malicious intent. This theory is also difficult to prove since the area where she vanished was relatively isolated and no one in the vicinity reported seeing or hearing any suspicious individuals. If Stacy would have screamed, she would have been heard quite easily by the group. Is it possible that Stacy may have slipped and fallen into a hidden crevice? But once again, no evidence, like a body or clothing, has ever been recovered. Searchers extensively combed the nearby lake and surrounding areas without success. Some speculate that Stacy's disappearance, like other missing 411 cases, could be tied to supernatural forces or even extraterrestrial activity, though there is no concrete evidence to support these claims. But something had to happen. Stacy's disappearance remains an open and unsolved case. Over the years, the lack of evidence has only added to the mystery surrounding her vanishing. Speculation is rife that there may be details that were either overlooked or not disclosed to the public. The case remains a chilling reminder of how even seemingly safe environments can harbor inexplicable mysteries. The next case is Danny Philippidis, a 49-year-old firefighter with 28 years of service, became the subject of national attention in 2018 due to his mysterious disappearance and equally strange reappearance. Philippidis went missing during an annual ski trip with his colleagues at Whiteface Mountain near Lake Placid on February the 7th, 2018. He was last seen skiing down the slopes in the early afternoon. After he failed to return, his friends and colleagues grew concerned. Danny's personal property was still at the lodge and his car was still in the car park. They assumed he must still be on the mountain. A search effort involving ski patrols, rescue teams, and law enforcement was immediately set up. Despite extensive efforts, there were no signs of him on the mountain. However, 6 days later, Philippidis was found nearly 3,000 miles away in Sacramento, California, with no clear memory of how he got there. He was reportedly disorientated and confused, still wearing his ski gear and holding his credit card and other personal belongings. He contacted his wife from Sacramento and law enforcement officials confirmed his identity. When questioned, Philippidis said he had only vague recollections of his journey. He mentioned traveling in a big rig and possibly being driven by a truck driver, though he had no concrete memory of the details. Medical professionals examined him to determine if there was a medical or psychological explanation, such as amnesia, a head injury, or a dissociative episode, but no definitive answers were ever found. The case remains a mystery to this day. How about the case of James McCrogan? A 39-year-old doctor from Indiana disappeared in March 2014 during a skiing trip near Vail, Colorado. His case is one of the most perplexing due to the strange and unexplainable nature of his disappearance and the circumstances of his death. James was an experienced outdoorsman skilled in skiing, hiking, and forestry survival. He, along with a group of friends, embarked on a backcountry skiing trip to Camp Hale, a popular area in Colorado. The group was planning to ski to the Eisman Hut, a remote cabin situated deep in the Holy Cross Wilderness. At some point during the trip, McGrogan got ahead of the group. This was not particularly unusual given his experience and the fact that he had all the necessary gear with him, including a GPS device, his cell phone, a sleeping bag, plenty of food and water, a helmet, and skis. Despite being well prepared and in good physical condition, McGrogan just vanished. His friends arrived at the Eisman Hut later that day expecting him to be there, but McGrogan never arrived. After waiting for several hours, the group raised the alarm and reported him missing. An extensive search operation was launched, involving again helicopters, snowmobiles, and experienced ground teams. Searchers were baffled because McGrogan had a working GPS and phone, and he was in the relatively well-known area. Despite the thorough search efforts, no trace of him was found in the immediate days following his disappearance. Nearly 5 days after he went missing, James McGrogan's body was discovered by searchers in a remote area near Booth Falls, approximately 4.5 miles from the trail he had initially been on. His body was found in a location that was difficult to access, requiring searchers to use a helicopter to recover his remains. His body was found miles from the intended route to the Eisman Hut, strangely in the opposite direction from where he was supposed to be heading. Don't forget, this man was an experienced hiker, an experienced tracker, and well prepared for this trip. The terrain he was found in was extremely rugged, making it almost impossible for him to have travelled there on foot, especially under snowy conditions. How he ended up in this remote location remains one of the biggest questions in this case. However, when his body was found, it was missing several key items, including his skis, his helmet, and his boots. His mobile phone and GPS device were with him, but there was no record of him trying to call for help or use the GPS to either navigate or help the search party locate him, which is particularly strange considering the danger he would have been in. According to reports, McGrogan had suffered significant injuries, but there was no clear explanation for how he had sustained them. There were no signs of a struggle or attack, and authorities did not suspect foul play. Additionally, the area where his body was found had already been searched on the search map twice earlier, raising questions about why his body wasn't discovered sooner. Given McGrogan's experience with extreme outdoor survival and his preparedness for the trip, it seemed strange that he would get lost or not attempt to communicate for help. He was known for his athletic ability and his cautious approach to outdoor activities. The fact that he wandered so far off course, despite having a working GPS and plenty of supplies, defied explanation. His remains yet another unsolved backcountry mystery and part of the missing 411 cases. Our last case for now is probably the most mysterious and the hardest to even contemplate an explanation. Dennis Martin was a 6-year-old boy who vanished on June the 14th, 1969, while on a family camping trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Dennis was playing a game with his brother and other children, hiding behind bushes to surprise the adults. The children were having fun. He was last seen by his father, William Martin, who had his eyes on Dennis as he ducked behind a bush. Just minutes later, when William went to check on him, Dennis had completely vanished. This happened within a very short time frame, almost as if Dennis disappeared in the blink of an eye. One of the largest search efforts in US history ensued, involving the FBI, the Green Berets, and thousands of volunteers, yet no trace of Dennis was ever found. This involved over 1,400 people combing the area within days of his disappearance. The terrain was rugged, but the level of effort and resources poured into the search was unprecedented. Despite this, there was no sign of Dennis. No clothing, no body, no footprints, nothing. During the time Dennis went missing, a family reported seeing something unusual a few miles away from where Dennis vanished. A man named Harold Key and his family were hiking near Rowan's Creek, about 5 or 6 miles from where Dennis disappeared, when they heard an enormous, sickening scream and saw what they initially thought was a man hiding in the bushes. Mr. Key said it looked like a rough, unkempt man who was trying to avoid being seen. His family noticed this individual shortly after hearing the scream, adding a chilling layer to the mystery. Interestingly, the FBI never followed this sighting up, and it remains an unexplained lead. One of the more peculiar aspects of the case was the involvement of the USA Army Green Berets in the search effort. While it's not unusual for the military to assist in such efforts, the level of their involvement was odd, especially given that they appear to operate independently of the other search teams, often not sharing information or strategies. This has fueled theories that the government was aware of something unusual happening in the area, thus making the search for Dennis imperative. The case has led to a wide range of theories, from the involvement of the cryptids like Bigfoot to government cover-ups or even UFO abductions. Some suggest that there could be an unknown predator in the park, either an animal or a human. The Key family's sighting has led some to speculate that Dennis might have been abducted by a feral human or some other unusual individual living in the wilderness, though this theory has never been confirmed nor denied. Dennis's disappearance is really bizarre. I mean, despite the massive search effort and the expertise brought into the operation, there were no traces of Dennis found, no physical evidence to explain where he went. Dennis vanished in broad daylight, just feet away from his father. The time window for him to vanish without a trace was incredibly small. The scream heard by the Key family and their sighting of the rough man have never been explained or fully investigated. Surely they would have at least followed up on that. Decades later, there is still no closure in the case, and no one knows what happened to poor Dennis. These are just a few of the cases from thousands that have happened across the whole of the United States and beyond. Yosemite National Park has the biggest cluster, but it is far from being the answer. Folk across the world have tried to find out what the Missing 11 phenomena is all about, but with little to no findings. Although I have only covered a small number of cases, I have tried to be diverse. At the end of the day, the Missing 411 has taken very small children all the way up to experienced outdoorsmen and women. One fact remains: no one has any definitive answers as yet. Are they simple accidents? Are they the result of cunning animal predators with the abilities to cover their tracks? Is human foul play to blame? Or is it something more strange, more bizarre, and something unexplainable? You be the judge. I have to say this was my favourite research topic, and it has left me stumped for sure. Thanks for watching, and please, if you have any ideas to what the Missing 411 could be, let me know in the comments. I can't wait to hear what you think it all is. The comments on my previous videos seem extremely low compared to the views, which is a bit strange and worrying. I'm sure it's nothing sinister, but I can assure you it's not me if you commented before and it hasn't appeared. I don't take any comments down, even if I disagree with one. Also, if you like the video, please click the like button and consider subscribing. Anyhow, if you're going camping, or glamping for that matter, remember, always go prepared, always let others know where you are, and scream loud. See you in the next video. Bye for now.